But anyways, talking about the Giro d'Italia, who is going to win the Giro d'Italia? That's probably a good question. Who do you guys think is literally going to win the Giro? We've got the Roglic, we've got Lazov, we've got Remco Evenepoel, we've got Theo Gegenhardt. Who do you actually think who's going to win?
Remco. I know it's got to be it's got to be the most boring one because he is literally the bookie's favorite to win. I know Roglic is a good time trialist, but I think Remco's a better one. I think that he'll put in the two flat TTs. I think he'll put time into him there. We saw it in the Vuelta last year, 30k TT, put like a minute into Roglic. So that's like 50k a flat for TT before anything. That's like a minute and a half into Roglic theoretically. And I just think that Remco's really good right now. I think that he's on flying form, and I think it's going to be real hard for Roglic to beat him. To be honest with you, that's just the nooks of it.
I am inclined to agree with you there. It is boring, but I would say Remco is probably going to be the favourite. He's now won a Grand Tour, so we can throw out all the hypotheticals because he's done it now. Yes, he's not won a Giro, but neither has Roglic. He should be there. I reckon he'll gain a little bit of time over Roglic, and then they'll kind of stick to each other like glue throughout the race. Remco is a very good rider at limiting his losses and riding conservatively. Yes, he sometimes has a meltdown, but we haven't seen that meltdown really since early 2022 when he would like ride up there in a GC and then one day would lose 20, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And that's him out of contention. That used to happen an awful lot. But since sort of the Vuelta last year, we haven't seen a Remco meltdown. Even at the UAE Tour, when we thought he was having a meltdown on that final climb to Jebel Hafid when Adam Yates attacked, he limited his losses to only lose about 10 or so seconds in the end, when it could have been a lot worse. Even last year's Vuelta a España at Sierra Nevada at what? 55,000 meters above sea level. He still didn't lose that much time, even though it looked like he was cracking hard on that climb. He lost maybe 45 seconds to a minute on that climb. So I'm quite favorable towards Remco. I think he'll be there with Roglic throughout. I think Roglic will probably win more stages just because we know how Roglic Roglifies. But in a general sense, the way that cycling is going, especially in 2023, the concentration of race victories is very much, or high level race victories, is very much in the hands of a very small pool of riders. We spoke about them last week. And I think the only two riders who are capable of winning this race at the moment with the start list would be Roglic and Evenepoel. I don't see anybody else on the level. Unless if they crash, then it'll be Adios. I feel it's going to be a team. It's going to be one of these super teams, or it's primarily going to be either Remco or Roglic. It should be a good one.
Do you want to hear my slightly hot take? I don't think that Roglic is going to finish on the podium
Ooh, please expand. He
because
crashes on stage two.
Roglic, yeah, literally Roglic, he is like Geraint Thomas. He does have a tendency to crash, which when the Giro is quite renowned for having temperamental weather, aka rain, aka slippery roads, equals probably a higher chance of crashing. So I have backed Roglic to win quite a few Grand Tours in a row now over the past few years, and I always just get slapped in the face because he always DNFs, and especially when you consider that Roglic isn't also that great in the last week of the Grand Tour. We've seen this before. Think back to when Carapaz almost cracked him in the Vuelta in that COVID year. And that was Carapaz. This wasn't like a Pogacar or something, No offense to Carapaz or whatever. But basically my point is that this Giro this year is very heavily focused GC-wise into the final week, which is where Roglic is notoriously the weakest. So therefore, I don't favour Roglic to do that well. And I actually think that people like João Almeida and Theo Gegenhardt could actually finish ahead of him because I think Roglic could capitulate in that final week on stage 19 or something when we go multiple times over 2,000 meters. I could see Roglic cracking on the Passo João and losing minutes. I honestly could see that happening.
I'm with you on that one. I think that out of the two, Remco and Roglic, I would say Roglic is the one I'm most sure on there being problems. Even back in 2019, when he had that sort of star-studded build, like his build up towards that year's Giro, exceptional. I think he won Tirreno. It was him and Yates in the end. I think he won Tirreno, then he won Romandy. It was right up there in a number of high-level races. He was the best stage racer that year up until that point. Won the opening stage TT and led the race to begin with. He crashed very early on a rainy stage and ripped. I think he fell kind of on his thigh derriere area. And that sort of was okay, here we go. It's sort of baptism of fire for Roglic. And then later on in the race, there was a stage. It was a pragmatic descent, I think, down to Bergamo, that stage that was won by Dario Cataldo. And Roglic crashed on the final descent of the day, and it was like, here we go, panic stations, Roglic is back. And it seems like this seems to happen an awful lot for him, quite like Geraint Thomas, where it does make it sort of hard to sort of back him in a Grand Tour setting. Even over the past year, the 2022 Tour de France, the 2022 Vuelta a España, Roglic crashed out of both of them. Yes, over a 1 week long stage race, he is brilliant. I would say one of the top 2-3 in the world. There's few opportunities to crash. The pressure and the tension for Tirreno Adriatico, being in a peloton for a Tirreno, is nowhere near being in the peloton of a Giro, particularly in that first week of racing. I get what you mean about Roglic. Elsewhere, though, I can't imagine Sasha Vlasov, Joao Almeida, maybe even Teo standing on that final podium in Rome with the Trofeo Senza Fine. I cannot see it.
I think Joao's taken a step up this year. I think that he's more consistent. He finished on a podium of Tirreno and in Catalonia. I mean, he finished 6th in Algarve, but that was a bit long ago to really be drawing conclusions. But I just think that he's looking a bit more consistent this year in comparison to last year, where something was kind of missing. I could never quite put my finger onto what it was, but I think Joao is looking better this year. Tricky thing where UAE have about 4 leaders here as well, and like McNulty, Vine, maybe it's just those two, but those two could be, I don't know, UAE have so many people. And then we have Ackerman, who's there. There was no support.
He was looking decent in the Cobble Classics, but also throw in the fact they have the Rocha here himself, Davide Formolo. It is a bit chaotic, but I always think with Almeida, like, he doesn't have that winner element to him, where like Remco, Roglic, Pogacar, they all do, having that winner element where you can go into a race and think, oh yeah, he's going to win a stage. He'll be there. Not quite so sure on Joao Almeida. He's never won a Grand Tour stage. He's finished in top 10 at Grand Tours on 3 occasions. It should have been 4 if it weren't for COVID last year. He's been up there and thereabouts, wore the pink jersey. He's never won a stage. To win a Grand Tour, I feel like you need to win a stage. I know people have done it before without doing it, but like, come on. I don't know. There's something about him just misses that winner element that I think other people have in this start list.
I agree. I see what you mean.
Well, we were talking about Remco, Roglic. We were talking about the teams as well in the preview over on the second game. And I mean, do you not think that potentially Jumbo could squash completely Soudal Quickstep in the mountains, and then Remco is isolated, etc., etc.? And then maybe UAE Team Emirates are the ones benefiting off this, and they just send riders up the road, and then Remco has to police everything.
Maybe, but I'm not convinced about Jumbo's team strength, to be honest with you. Like, they've got, in terms of riders who are going to be putting the pace on up the climbs, they've got Sepp Kuss, Tratnik, Voss. I think that, honestly, I have faith in Van Wilder, Jan Hurt, and Masnada to be able to cope with that. In all honesty, I don't think Jumbo have it this year to really shred it apart. I think that Ineos arguably do. I think that it could be on Ineos, but then they're not particularly aggressive, especially when they don't have the favourite. When they've got somebody like Teo or G, who isn't going to, in all honesty, like likelihood, be dropping a Roglic or an Evenepoel mano a mano. You know, they can shred the group down, but how useful is that going to be when it ultimately just gets to the crux of it and Teo eventually gets beaten by them anyway? Going back to the original point, I don't think that Jumbo have the ultimate team strength which we have seen in their Tour de France teams to really tear things apart. I think it will require some clever racecraft of getting people up the road, I think, to really make things stick.
I think that we're going to see a really strong Giro from Sepp Kuss. I think he'll be a really important rider we'll be seeing a lot of, but strength and depth, questionable in comparison to these other teams. Yeah, Robert Hasink is okay, but he's turning 65 soon. Also, I mean, Jan Tratnik's a brilliant Swiss Army knife kind of rider, but to be right up there at the end of a mountain stage, I'm not quite sure. Whereas Ineos, I do agree. I think Ineos might actually be one of the most motivated teams coming into this. Thierry Gegenhardt is the only Giro winner, we believe, who is starting the Giro d'Italia. They have belief that he can win this race. He's done it in the past. That's enough. Don't underestimate the power of that sort of motivational factor. He's got a lot of really strong riders by his side. Geraint Thomas looked very good as a domestique at Tour of the Alps. Laurens de Plus is back finally to the top level. He was one of the most pivotal riders in that final week in the 2019 Tour de France, let's not forget. Also, Tayman Arensman is here, who was just outside top 10 last year, and Pavel Sivakov, who's just been looking very strong. And we also saw Pippo Ganna a couple of years back as well, the 2021 Giro, won by Bernal. He was right up there in some of the mountain stages to help burn out in that sort of rolling intermediate part of the day, which I guess Tratnik will be in a similar position. But I really do think that Ineos might actually be in order here. And I think the Sky Train will be reborn at this Giro. And I don't think we should overlook Soudal. I mean, I was a culprit in the preview for sort of playing up the Soudal Quickstep being Mavericks of the Grand Tour setting, but they have a really strong team here. Mattia Cattaneo finished in 10th or 11th at the Tour de France, rather, back in 2021. Louis Vervaeke was top 20 at the Giro back in 2021. Ilan van Wilder is a fantastic climber who might actually be there right in the final sort of selection in the mountains. Jan Hirt, I'm not quite so sure, but I feel like Soudal has a really good strength and depth that maybe Jumbo is missing. Do Jumbo need Eduardo Buffini? Do they need Michael Heisman? I'm not 100% convinced.
Right, that's the thing. They bring in, as you say, Heisman.
Yeah.
Bring in Heisman, who I know, don't get me wrong, he's a very talented rider, right? Grand Tour debutant, unproven in senior ranks, and Jumbo are here with intentions to win. Surely you'd want to send somebody with more experience who's done a Grand Tour before. I don't understand the decision. He seems like exactly the kind of rider who you'd send to the Vuelta where there's a bit less pressure, because that's what the Vuelta has been known for years, although it is certainly more competitive in recent years for sure. But it just seems an odd move. Why are you sending somebody who's and he's literally a neo-pro to a Grand Tour where you're aiming to win? I just don't see how that adds up.
It's so rogue. I really thought Rowan Dennis would slot into this squad, given that he's not going to be at the Tour de France. We don't believe. If sleuth last week of piecing together the Tour de France team is correct, Rowan Dennis doesn't have a place there. I don't think he should, but I think he would suit this kind of Giro team quite well. He blows hot and cold, but bringing him instead of a Fini figure, and then Hessman, he could be replaced by a number of people. Hayes Leemreizer was really good last year.
Yeah.
It's just, it seems strange, but I am willing to be sort of proven wrong. But I certainly do agree on your foundational point that Jumbo aren't quite as strong as we might assume. I think we're taking name value more than team cohesion. There's something about this Jumbo team that feels a little bit sort of mismatchy. It's like a best of Tour de France squad with the sort of Roglic and Kuss aspect and Haysink from the sort of 2020 prime Roglic era. And they've like muddled it together with Tobias Foss, and Tratnik and a couple of these others. Well, like they just kind of like fill in the gaps.
I just feel like Soudal Quickstep and Ineos have more designated, specific, kind of a laid out plan and roles for the riders which they've brought. Ineos have Puccio and Ganna for the flat, switching to like Swift for like the beginning of a hill, and then like Laurens de Plus moving into Timon Lensman and Sivakov, and then Soudal Quickstep know exactly that Remco's the leader and Van Wilder's probably going to be the last man. And over Jumbo, you can say, well, they have the exact same thing. They know that it's going to be Roglic and Kuss, but I just feel like the supporting act for Soudal, so long as they're all on flying form, we get a Jan Hirt like we had at the Giro last year. I honestly think that Soudal are stronger. And I think that, like I said earlier, I think they have a stronger leader. That's my take from it.